welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're tackling Yvonne K. Fulbright's The Best Oral Sex Ever, her guide to going down. Now, you might think, okay, this is just about technique, maybe. But we're actually aiming to go much deeper.
Yeah,
They're
definitely.
going to explore the surprising cultural stuff, the fascinating anatomy details, intimacy nuances, even safety aspects around fellatio.
Right.
Your goal, listening in, is to get a really comprehensive understanding, maybe connect some dots you hadn't thought about before.
Exactly. What you've got here is a really thorough guide. It covers everything from the basic anatomy right through to communication strategies and, crucially, safer sex practices.
It's way more than just a how-to list then.
Oh, much richer, yeah.
And our mission, well, we want to be your guides through all this info. We're here to pull out the most insightful bits, maybe some surprising things.
Give you a shortcut to feeling really informed, hopefully.
Yeah, get ready for some aha
Yeah.
moments, but, without feeling totally overwhelmed.
And just to, spark your curiosity straight off, get this. There were actually times and places where oral sex was illegal.
Seriously?
Yeah, even between consenting adults. It just shows how much attitudes can shift,
Wow. Right. And also the Kama Sutra, that ancient guide.
Yeah.
Apparently, it dedicates a whole chapter to what it calls oral congress.
A whole chapter. So we'll definitely be digging into those kinds of historical and cultural bits.
Okay.
So just to give you a roadmap, we'll start with the history and cultural perception, that kind of thing.
Right.
Then we'll dive into the male anatomy that's relevant here, look at different positions, techniques for people wanting to, up their game,
Okay.
touch on sensual enhancements, even some more, let's say, sacred ways of thinking about it.
Interesting.
And then finally, we'll tackle common issues, myths, how we see genitals, and wrap up with communication and sexual health. Super important stuff.
Sounds like a plan. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this intriguing history a bit. Why has oral sex had such a complicated place? It seems so common now, but like you said,
Yeah.
and the source mentions Indiana, for example, it was actually illegal fairly recently. What's behind that?
That's a really good question. Those kinds of laws often came from a mix of things, like moral or religious beliefs, maybe broader attempts by society to control sexual behavior.
Right.
It's fascinating how those laws could exist when, in reality, it was and is a really widespread practice.
Yeah.
The book mentions studies showing something like 90% of men and women aged, say, 25 to 44 have engaged in oral sex.
90%.
Yeah.
So there's a huge gap between the official stance and what people are actually doing.
Exactly. A real tension there.
And pop culture has definitely played a role in making it more visible, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The book talks about the porn industry and, well, films like Deep Throat with Linda Lovelace.
Oh, absolutely.
That really pushed fellatio into the public eye.
For sure. Media, especially porn, has massively shaped how people see fellatio and also what they expect from it. It's often shown as the central sex act, And that image definitely influences how people approach it.
Okay, here's something I found really thought-provoking. The source talks about how, historically, sometimes women performing oral sex were seen as being in a, subordinate role. The physical act, being on your knees, it had certain meanings.
Right, those power dynamics.
But then the book kind of flips that. It highlights how modern views, even feminist ones, can see it as empowering, as a source of pleasure for both partners. That's a real shift.
It really is. You have that historical context where traditional relationship dynamics definitely colored how the act was seen.
Yeah.
But as we understand sexuality better now, focusing more on mutual pleasure and, individual choice, the meaning and the power balance change a lot.
And this idea that maybe the focus shifted from intimacy to just technique, that's interesting too. The book mentions Monica Lewinsky's experience and contrasts it with a French cultural view, where it's seen as more meaningful. Makes you wonder if we sometimes overdo the performance aspect.
That's a sharp sociological point. When it becomes all about technique, just the execution,
Yeah.
the potential for that emotional connection, the intimacy, it can get lost. That contrast with the French view really shows how culture shapes the meaning of these acts.
And just when you think it's all about humans, the source mentions fruit bats. Apparently, we're not the only ones doing oral genital stuff.
Right, fruit bats during copulation.
Wild. It's kind of humbling, a reminder that pleasure beyond just making babies isn't only our thing.
It's fascinating biologically. Suggests maybe a more basic drive for pleasure, not just tied to reproduction. Puts it in a broader context.
Okay, let's switch gears from culture and history to the anatomical landscape. The book gives a pretty detailed map of what it calls the passion-inducing parts of the penis. It's clearly not just one spot, is it?
Not at all. It's really a whole terrain, different sensitivities everywhere. Let's start with the glands. That's the tip. Super sensitive.
Okay, the tip. Got it.
Think loads of nerve endings packed in there. It's a primary pleasure zone.
And then the foreskin, for guys who aren't circumcised, that's apparently full of nerve endings too. And it moves back during an erection.
Precisely. It's not just, extra skin. It actively plays a role in sensation, acts like a natural textural thing.
Right.
Then you've got the urethral opening, that little slit at the tip. The book says for some it's arising, but for others it can be sensitive, even uncomfortable. So gentle is probably best there.
Makes sense. The shaft itself seems like the main part, yeah. With the spongy tissues that fill with blood for the erection. Sounds like this area can handle a bit more enthusiasm.
Exactly. It's generally more resilient, can take more robust stimulation compared to, say, the glands or the opening.
Okay.
And then there's the corona. That's the ridge, the raised bit at the base of the gland.
Right.
For a lot of guys, especially if they're circumcised, the book notes, this is a very excitable area.
Now, the frenulum, that little strip of skin underneath where the shaft meets the head, the source calls it extremely sensitive. Says stimulating it too much can even lead to orgasm really quickly.
That's spot on. For many men, it's exceptionally sensitive, like a shortcut almost.
Okay, good to know.
And we can't forget the scrotum, the balls. The book reminds us it's a sensitive sac holding the testicles. Sensitivity varies a lot, though. Some guys like gentle play there, others not so much. Needs care and consent.
Right, always check in.
Yeah.
And finally, the perineum, that soft bit between the scrotum and the anus. Apparently stimulating that affects the prostate indirectly.
That's right. You might not be stimulating it directly with your mouth, but manual pressure, massaged there while focusing on the penis, it can really amplify things. It's all connected, nerves and blood flow.
Okay, so we've got the map of the terrain now. Let's move on to what the book calls Naked Twister Gets Naughty.
Positions.
Exactly. Positions for oral sex. The source really hammers home how changing position can totally change the sensations. It's not just what you do, but how you're arranged.
Totally. And the book lays out a whole bunch showing how each gives different angles, maybe different depths, different levels of closeness. Let's start with the classic.
Okay.
Receiver lies back, totally relaxed. Giver usually has great access, especially if the receiver props their hips up with the pillow, lifts things a bit.
And even within that classic, there are tons of tweaks, like lying on your stomach, arms under thighs for leverage, or lying sideways to your partner. It also suggests the giver could sit on the receiver's legs, calls it a dominatrix pin-down effect. Definitely adds a different vibe.
It does, yeah, introduces that power dynamic if that's your thing. Then there's on your knees.
Right.
The book suggests this can tap into male dominance ideas. Also good for cookies, apparently.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be literally on the floor knees.
Oh, okay.
Could be using chairs, edge of the bed, even the back seat of a car. Just changing the angle.
Face sitting sounds like it puts the receiver firmly in control.
Yeah, they straddle the giver's face, control the pace, pressure, everything.
The book even mentions having a safety signal, like 2 taps on the thigh if it's too much.
Yeah.
That really shows how important communication is, even in seemingly submissive positions.
Absolutely critical. And it allows for really close contact, genitals, maybe anal too, if that's desired. Then there's sideways, sounds more chill, leisurely. Book suggests playing with the body angles, how far the receiver's legs are apart. That can really change the feel.
The wrap around sounds cozy. Giver sits behind the receiver, wraps arms around.
Yeah, quite intimate.
Book suggests a cock sleeve might help if reach is tricky, or the receiver could kind of guide things themselves.
It's all about finding what works, being adaptable, and then plow pose, inspired by yoga.
Yeah. That sounds flexible. Definitely for the adventurous couple.
Or maybe just trying something new. And then deep throat, linked to Linda Lovelace, of course. Giver lies with their head hanging off the bed edge. Receiver could even lean over, stimulate the clitoris at the same time.
Wow, multitasking.
It allows for really deep penetration, and either partner can control the thrusting. And we can't skip the 69.
The 69, the classic, French appeal.
Right. Main variations are side by side or who's on top. Face-to-face interaction possible.
And for the really athletic, a standing 69.
Apparently. Takes balance and coordination, the book implies.
It just shows the massive variety, doesn't it? From super relaxed to, well, practically acrobatic.
Exactly. No single right way. It's all about exploring, experimenting, finding what feels best for both people.
All right, so you found a comfy or maybe daring position. Now let's get into the actual techniques for oral sex aficionados.
The toolkit.
Yeah, the book really lays out a lot of different moves.
It sure does. Starts with the basics.
Yeah.
Licking, lapping, flicking with the tongue tips, slurping, circling the head, tickling. Different kinds of sucking, kissing the shaft, using lip pressure, even gentle nibbling. And it stresses varying pace and pressure is absolutely key.
Keep them guessing. And it talks about different movement patterns, too, not just up and down, but side to side, diagonals, circles, even tracing letters or figure eights.
Sounds like tongue gymnastics.
Yeah.
It is. And the book makes a strong point. Enthusiasm is huge. Even if you're not feeling it 100% initially, acting like you're enjoying it makes a big difference to the receiver.
The power of positive reinforcement. Hand coordination comes up a lot, too, right?
Yeah.
Using hands and mouth together.
Definitely. Combining them enhances everything. Using lube with your hands, controlling the penis, maybe adding a twisting motion.
Okay.
The hands can really amplify and mix things up. The book also mentions massaging the perineum just before orgasm.
Right, the indirect prostate stimulation.
Yeah, and gently squeezing the base of the penis during orgasm. Potential enhancers.
Now, tongue kung fu. That sounds intense. Ancient Chinese approach, emphasizing intention.
Yeah, combining tongue, teeth, lips skillfully. It even mentions tongue diving. Sounds focused.
It's about being mindful, intentional, like your tongue is an extension of your desire.
That's a good way to put it. The book also quickly covers putting on a condom with your mouth. Practical skill.
Definitely useful. And for the adventurous, it covers rimming techniques, too.
Sucking, circling the anus, light dipping. But it wisely notes you might need to give the penis extra attention during analingus to keep the receiver relaxed.
Good point. It can feel vulnerable. And focusing on the penis itself, lip shape, focusing on the frenulum, mimicking thrusting, varying suction, using hands.
Lots of variables to play with. Being mindful of the different parts and sensitivities we talked about earlier.
And through all this technical stuff, the book keeps saying, check in with your partner.
Crucial.
Even grunts or nods count as feedback.
Absolutely. Communication, verbal or not, is essential. Making sure everyone's comfortable, enjoying it, getting what they want.
Okay, let's move to It's Playtime. Sensual enhancements. This is about adding tools, substances, lubricants, food, accessories. Let's start with lubes. Keeping things slippery is good.
Always a good plan. And the book breaks down the types nicely. Flavored ones. Originally for masking latex taste. Now tons of flavors exist, but they can sometimes get sticky or dry out, water-based. Generally easy, non-irritating, cleans up well, but yeah, they can dry faster.
Okay. Silicone.
Good quality is key. Book warns about ingesting some types due to taste. Oil-based, big no-no with latex condoms, damages them, and messy for oral anyway.
Right. And warming lubes.
Heat up with friction or blowing. Can be fun, but test sensitivity first.
Good advice. Moving to edible aphrodisiacs. Turning your partner into dessert.
Kind of. Engaging multiple senses. Champagne, cinnamon, juicy fruits.
Sounds sensual.
Dark chocolate gets a shout-out, mood boost, blood flow. Honey, whipped cream for drizzling, licking. Even temperature play ice cubes, popsicles, warm water in the mouth.
Lots of creative potential there. And then the accessories. The toys.
Tongue vibes, little rings for tingling sensations on the tongue. Some have speeds, glow in the dark.
Funky. And the sweel. Rotating wheel with soft tongues. Simulates oral.
Yeah, that's the idea. And vibrators aren't just for vulvas. Hold one against your cheek during fellatio. Transmits vibrations.
Clever. Dildos for fantasy play or penetration during oral.
Yep. Butt plugs, anal beads for added fullness, or prostate massage with safety notes, of course.
Important. Cock rings, cock sleeves. Enhanced sensation for him, maybe a buffer for the giver.
Could be. Even things like sport sheets for light bondage. Or low-tech. Mirrors for visuals, nylon stockings for texture.
Really opens up a world of experimentation, doesn't it?
It really does. Exploring textures, sensations, dynamics keeps things interesting.
Now, this section on sacred oral sex approaches feels like a shift in perspective.
Definitely.
Talk about transcendence, oneness, through extended mindful sex. Draws on tantric traditions.
Yeah, Hindu and Buddhist tantric sex. Viewing sexual union as a path to connect with something bigger. Merging masculine energy, lingam, and feminine energy, yoni, for spiritual growth.
So the benefits go beyond just physical pleasure.
That's the idea. Emotional balance, self-worth, more passionate sex life overall.
And the Kama Sutra pops up again. Sees kisses as the start of sexual loving, whole chapter on Uparishtaka Oral Congress, with 8 techniques.
That ancient text really valued oral stimulation as part of lovemaking. The book also mentions intentionally creating a sensual setting, maybe even a little altar with symbolic items.
Like objects representing yoni and lingam, to focus intention.
Exactly. Heighten the spiritual aspect. And those lingam kisses from the Kama Sutra, various ways to pleasure the penis.
Yeah.
And the crow, their version of 69, symbolizing transformation, merging energies.
It's a totally different way to think about it, beyond just physical, into something deeper, more meaningful.
Precisely. Intention, reverence, deep connection, not just a physical act.
Okay, let's pivot to the practical stuff again. Owning your pleasures, assessing any issues. This tackles common problems, challenges. First point, don't ignore the rest of the body.
Good reminder. Easy to get hyper-focused. And it warns against manhandling the scrotum. Gentle touch, usually best, unless specifically requested otherwise.
Right. Then the gag reflex. Not fun. Book offers ways to manage it.
Several, yeah. Circular breathing, changing angles or positions, mental distraction, taking breaks, shallower penetration, using your hand to control depth.
All sound like helpful strategies for a common issue. What about giving oral to someone who's, well, really well endowed?
Advice is, try to relax, focus on breathing, maybe pick a position where the giver controls the depth more easily. Hand assistance can create an illusion of depth if needed.
Makes sense. Finding a comfortable way. What about erectile dysfunction during oral sex?
Sensitive topic. Book suggests practicing with condoms during masturbation might help with anxiety. Also stresses addressing emotional stuff, vulnerability, relationship dynamics. Receiving oral can feel vulnerable for some guys.
True. Premature ejaculation, another common one. Book mentions recognizing that point of no return.
Yeah, the point of inevitability.
Huh.
Using stop-start, the squeeze technique, also suggests Kegels for men, pelvic floor control.
Right. Kegels for better control, and inhibitions about oral sex, psychological stuff, past trauma, even just disgust.
Can be complex, might need therapy sometimes, or just gradual relaxation, desensitization, taking time-outs if needed.
And the age-old question, okay to kiss after?
Book says, personal preference. Talk about it.
Communication again.
Always. Then it lists benefits. Stress relief, oxytocin, intimacy boost, better sleep, mood lift, endorphins. Contributes to sexual fulfillment, well-being.
Good stuff. And it debunks myths, like all men want you to swallow.
Yeah, myth busted. And the fear of peeing during climax. Physiologically unlikely, and urine's mostly sterile anyway. Put some anxieties to rest.
Definitely helpful. Okay, that leads smoothly into genital perceptions attending to the senses. It says positive feelings about your own genitals linked to enjoying sex more, including oral.
Makes sense. And it notes that while we talk a lot about female body image, men can be critical of their own genitals too, often comparing themselves to unrealistic porn standards.
Yeah, that's a really important point, this idea of a perfect penis size. Total myth. Book gives averages, reassures most guys are in the normal range.
Right. Addresses small penis syndrome, often just misperception, and strongly warns against unsafe, ineffective enlargement procedures.
So partners should be supportive, not judged by those standards. Embrace uniqueness, build confidence.
Absolutely. Research cited even says men often view their genitals more favorably than women view theirs. And interestingly, more women prefer width over length.
Oh, really? That challenges common assumptions.
The book also talks about the uncircumcised penis. Global norm, just as hygienic with proper cleaning. Highlights foreskin play, natural lubrication.
Good info. Scent and taste come up too. Affected by sweat, diet, stresses open communication about preferences.
Yeah. And the spit or swallow thing again. Personal choice, not a measure of love. Discuss it.
Options if you don't want to swallow.
Exactly. Book even has dietary tips for maybe improving semen taste, if you're curious. But again, not wanting to swallow is totally valid. Talk it out.
Okay, finally, a super crucial section. Opening your mouth for oral the other way. Sex communication.
Absolutely fundamental.
Book makes it crystal clear. Talking openly about sex, including oral sex, enhances the experience. Full stop.
Totally. Likes, dislikes, fears, fantasies, emotional connection. Discussing it all deepens intimacy, leads to better sex.
Feeling comfortable sharing wants, difficulties, being mindful, not judging, being patient.
All key. It even mentions oral sex, dirty talk, as a way to boost enthusiasm for both people.
Ah, good point. And then the vital topic, having safer sex.
Cannot stress this enough.
Book is direct. Oral sex isn't risk-free. STIs can be transmitted, fluids, skin-to-skin contact.
Yep. HIV, hepatitis, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, herpes, warts, HPV, even parasites during analingus.
It even cites a Johns Hopkins study linking throat cancer risk to multiple oral sex partners.
It's crucial information. Ejaculation in the mouth increases infection risks specifically. So abstain if there's an active STI or use protection.
And the specific protection for oral: unlubricated condoms, plain or flavored, FDA approved, dental dams.
Latex gloves, finger cots for manual stuff too. Consistent and correct use is key.
Beyond barriers. Get informed about STIs, know your body, talk to your partner.
Yes. Book mentions some STIs have no symptoms, urges regular testing, gives tips on how to start that conversation calmly, neutrally, focus on mutual comfort, make a protection plan together.
Okay. The book also shines a light on less discussed male pleasure zones. Yeah. Prostate, perineum, butt, anus.
Right. Explains prostate stimulation, external via perineum, internal via anus, can be intensely pleasurable for many men.
Provides techniques, emphasizes hygiene, communication again, notes the taboo aspect of anal play can be a turn-on for some.
And that prostate stimulation can lead to more intense, longer orgasms, maybe multiple or blended ones.
And finally, tips for maximizing his orgasmic response during oral.
Yeah, like helping him relax, get out of his head, encouraging him to be active pelvic moves, Kegels, stimulating other spots at the same time.
And a reminder for the giver, mutual pleasuring is vital. Make space for reciprocation.
All contributes to a more satisfying experience for everyone.
So there we have it, a really deep dive into this guide. It's way more than just mechanics, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
We've hit history, anatomy, positions, techniques, enhancements, sacred views, tackling issues, and crucially, communication and safety.
It shows fellatio, at its best, involves understanding, talking, focusing on mutual pleasure.
So thinking about all that, especially communication and maybe working through inhibitions, how might that open things up in your own relationship?
Yeah, what's maybe one small step you could take to explore this more with a partner, discuss desires, preferences?
And don't forget the resources the book mentions, websites, other books if you want to go deeper into safer sex, Kama Sutra, health concerns.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope it's given you some valuable insights and maybe a few of those aha moments.